Matthew Shuckman, Cinema Daily US. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Look, we'll delve right into it because guess from the time from when you were filming this to now that it's released, we've driven probably closer and closer to the idea of we never learned anything from history, which we were supposed to.
Right.
And I'm just kind of interested to hear your thoughts on, how poignant something that shouldn't should have been history is to us today.
Yeah, I mean it's fascinating for me because this has been 13 years for me. So I first read the Jack L. High's book proposal for the Nazi psychiatrist 13 years ago. And it was about Kelly and Rami Malek's character Dr. Kelly and his relationship with Russell Crowe's character Hermann Göring. And it was sort of the fastest I ever said yes to anything in my life because the idea of exploring the nature of evil I was just really taken with. And then I started doing research about, and I learned about, Michael's character, Michael Shannon's character, Robert H. Jackson, who was the man who basically said, the U.S. Army and the other armies just wanted to shoot these guys and be over with it. And he was the one who said, no, we have to have these trials. This is incredibly important, and worked very hard to put them on, and then ended up going to Nuremberg and becoming the chief U.S. prosecutor. So I sort of went, oh wow, I thought my movie was over here in a cell, but actually it's also over here in a courtroom. And then I read about Leowoodall's character, Howie Trias, the translator, and went, oh my gosh, my movie's also over here, which as a screenwriter is terrifying because what you want to do is contract the story, and try and fit it in to 2 hours, and it just kept expanding. But sort of to go to what you're saying, I mean, 13 years ago I thought it was very relevant, and I certainly think it's very relevant today. And I think, unfortunately, it's going to be relevant in the future. But I think there's some sort of universal truths that come up in this, and about us, about humanity, about the world we live in.
But is there anything that you want to add also, Michael, specifically because you multiple times, Robert Jackson in the script is saying, we have to do this so they can see, so they can learn, so we don't repeat the mistakes that history has done, and we seem to have not gotten there for some reason.
Yeah, well, I wish I could be the steward of all humanity and put a little note under everybody's pillow and say, when you wake up tomorrow, you'll stop being an asshole. But I can't. But I can tell stories like this. This is my best weapon, to participate. And really, we're all piggybacking off Jamie here. This is Jamie's vision, his, like he said, 13 years of hard work, his brilliant script. I wouldn't have taken the initiative to make a movie like this left to my own devices, but I'm sure glad that Jamie reached out to me and invited me to be a part of it. And I'm very honored to have played Robert H. Jackson because I believe he is, despite the point you're making, a heroic figure in our history.
And for both Michael and John, is there parts of you that want to stay away from having to study somebody, whether it be being able to see video of them or reading up on them because you want to still create a character out of this? Or do you go back and do a certain amount of research for who a person really is before delving into your performance?
Uh, I read the book. My character wrote a book as well, so that was helpful. The book, the Jack L. High book, on which the script is based, Jamie's script. But the movie isn't about the character I played, and so I had to sort of pick elements of his personality that fit and best fit the sort of responsible, respectable to the character, but to telling the story. And I think what Mike just said, that what my character sees is the importance of what Judge Jack, while we were working, that, well, whether with all the work capable of from these people, but also in the telling of the story in an appropriate way.
And James and Michael, either of you can take this if you want, but there's also a subconscious, not subconscious, but there's a subplot in a way about this idea of serving your own self-interests as well. And I'm curious to see about how that came through compared to wanting to also tell this real life story of what happened, also wanted to make sure you get those points across that aren't so obvious to Nuremberg.
Well, I
Yeah.
think Jackson
Oh, please.
operated actually uh, at his own sacrifice. Really, he didn't seem to have such self-serving motivations, as far as I can tell. But he wasn't like a saint or something. I'm absolutely certain that he made mistakes along the way, as we all do. But he seemed to have pretty altruistic motivations from
Mm.
what he did.
Mhm.
Sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think Jackson is sort of, maybe the one character who isn't sort of caught between sort of, his own self-interests and maybe doing the right things. Kelly certainly is. And I think
Yes.
part of the story and part of the thing I was really attracted to is this is a guy who's sort of caught between two things. He wants to spend the time with Goering and get to the, he sort of talks about, I want to figure out what the nature of evil is and how are these men different than us, and he wants to write a book about it. I mean, he wants to make some money after all of this. He wants to make something of himself in a way his father never did. And then Jackson kind of comes along and says, hey buddy, we need you to do this for your country, and even though it might compromise your values as a doctor. So I was just sort of fascinated about this guy who's sort of caught between those two things. As sometimes we all are in our own lives. There's the things we want to do, but then the things we feel like we should do and the right thing to do, as
Yeah.
opposed to, sometimes it's worse when that the right thing to do is not necessarily the thing you want to do. And that's, but yeah, again, it sort of goes back to that, this was, I think, a pretty amazing time where a lot of different people came together to ultimately try and do the right thing. And that is, that can sometimes be in short supply.
Gentlemen, I have to let you go, but to leave things on a lighter note, James, are we ever going to get the losers too?
I mean, no, it's unfortunately, if more people had come to the Losers One, we would have had a better chance. But I loved making that movie, and it was a great cast and a great time, and just that was a real fun one for me. So from your lips to God's ears, sir.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Always appreciate it.
Thank you, Matthew.
Take care.